Hey everybody, Whitney here, and I hope that you're having an excellent weekend. Today I thought we'd do something fun and customize some MayBerry Street miniatures. Now I got these for Christmas this year, but you can purchase these from Hobby Lobby for under $5. I have a paint palette set, and then I'm going to do this little jam and jelly set, which I had already taken out of the package because I was going to use it in a different project and then decided not to do that. So anyway, let's start with the paint palette here, and we're going to customize it and make it our very own. So you can see here that the artist set comes with some cool stuff. We've got the palette itself, which has a little bit of paint dots on it. We've got the wooden box. The box itself has no hardware and it's just being held together by a glued on piece of ribbon. And then we have all these really great paint tubes in silver and several different colors here to choose from. And then we have two paint brushes also that come with it. Now the paint brushes, to be fair, I would not say they are a true 12 scale. They're a little bit bigger. We're gonna still use them in the project, but we're just gonna kind of hide them a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do with this case is I'm going to grab my oak colored stain pen and I'm just going to color it. I'm going to fully stain it in that oak color. So the story I'm telling myself on the artist case is this. This belonged to someone's grandfather. He loved painting scenic views. Once he passed away, the case was given to his son, where it was stored in the attic for safekeeping. Unfortunately, between heat and cold, the case itself has gotten a little bit damaged and weathered, and then at some point, something knocked into it and it fell open, and that's how we're gonna find it. Now I'm just gonna take a little bit of fine sandpaper and sand down all the corners and give them a little bit more of a rounder edge, just to give the impression that the case is a little bit older and worn. Same with the painter's palette. I'm just going to give it a little sanding and kind of round out the edges and maybe sand off a little bit of the paint that's already on there. Now I'm going to grab some of my own paper painting napkins and just rip off a little bit here. And now I'm going to start repainting this painter's palette. Now I'm going to use some of the paint choices that are already on here and just grab some other variations of those colors and start blending them in to make this look more like a well-used painter's palette. I'm going to make sure to dab off any paint that's on my paintbrush that I'm using onto the paper towel, because eventually I'm going to use this little paper towel as miniature painter's rags for this painter's case. So you can see here I've added a lot of different color paints to our palette. I've really blended them around. The purpose is to make it look like this is a well-used palette, and of course that someone used a lot of different color paints on it and then they dried. And I love the way this palette looks because by itself it almost looks like an art piece you might hang on the wall. Okay, and now I'm also going to add some extra paint to the case itself. Remember, the part of the story is that it was in the attic and it spilled open. So maybe in that time period, because of the heat, some of the paints in the tubes kind of burst out a little bit. Maybe not every paintbrush that was put back was completely cleaned when it was put back. And so the point will be to add paint around and inside of the case to make it look random, but for us on our end, we want it, of course, to be very intentional at the same time. So I'm just going to add a lot of the same paints that I already used in the palette so that it would make sense for those same colors to be inside the case, and then mix in a few extra colors too, just for more interest. Now I'll just set that case aside for a little bit and I'm going to grab those paint tubes. And all I'm going to do is toss them onto this paper towel, and I'm just going to grunge them up a little bit with some extra paints. Just toss them around with my paintbrush. We're not getting too crazy. I just want to cut down a little bit on that real shiny new look that those paint tubes have. Now let's take care of those paintbrushes that come with the set. Now, like I said before, these are a little out of scale. They're, I would say, more like a play scale size, like a 1/6, but that's okay. I'm just gonna grunge them up, make them look a little used by dipping in some brown paint and also giving them like a little colored tip, like a blue and a green. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure they're in the box, but we're gonna hide them a little bit so that it doesn't really feel like they're really oversized. So I didn't want to add too much to the box that didn't already come with it, but I just felt like we maybe needed to add some pieces of paper or something that looks like it had been drawn on or sketched on or painted on, like little canvases. So I'm just going to take some of this cardstock remnants and cut them down and fit them inside the box. Now I want to age those little pieces of cardstock, so I'm just taking some of my paintbrush wash actually and just dabbing a little bit onto these pieces of cardstock to, like I said, age them out. I'm going to let those dry for just a little bit, and then what I thought would be a little fun detail was to sketch out a couple little scenic drawings. So I'm going to do one scenic drawing, maybe with a house and a tree, and then one maybe a mountain view or an ocean view or something like that, and then I'll add a color to just one of them so it kind of looks like there was a progression of art being done within this case. All right, now I'm going to tear apart my little artist towels that I've been making throughout the entire process. And then we're going to put together the whole thing and kind of stage it. And then we'll be done with our MayBerry Street makeover of the artist case. All right, so if you remember, this is how the case started out when we first got the MayBerry Street artist set. And now, less than 45 minutes later, this is what we have. A case that looks like it's been in the family for years. Let's move on to these little jars. So they kind of look like jelly jars, but when you look at them really close, it says carrots and lavender. So they're more like veggie jars or something. I thought it would be fun to take more of a modern approach to this next makeover or customization. And I thought that I would do a laundry shelf with some laundry soaps and that sort of thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove these jars from the shelf. I try to just pop them off, and honestly, 2 of them just popped right on off, but they are held down with some pretty decent glue. So the second step that I did was I just took an X-Acto knife. I just pushed my knife underneath the jars and kind of sliced them off, and that did help. It was still a little bit difficult. I will tell you the most difficult part in this entire makeover was getting these jars off the wood. The jars did pop off, but in a couple cases you can see they took some of the wood with them. I wasn't sure what would happen if I just popped this thing in the microwave for about 10 seconds, and I didn't want to take any chances. But once I did get all the jars off, I did put this shelf in for about 10 seconds to help me to remove the additional glue that was on the base of this. And then I did some sanding, and it came out okay, but I would say that you can still see some glue remnants, but it's going to be covered, so I'm not as upset about that, or it's not taking away ultimately from the piece. Now, the next thing that I did was I did remove the labels from the jars. I wasn't sure how difficult that was to be, but it actually proved to be very, very easy. So I was really happy about that. And then I did just pop the tops off. I was hoping that I would find a little piece of cork under there, but I didn't. And I guess I knew that was going to happen. I mean, for the cost, right? These are like $3 or something like that. All right, so once the tops are off, the jars are ready, the shelf is ready, I'm going to do a much darker shelf. So I took my stain pen in the mahogany color and I did several coats of this so that the shelf would be really dark. Because again, I'm kind of going with a more modern feel on this shelf, like more of a magnolia home kind of a look, a farmhouse kind of a look. And so I really want my shelf to be nice and dark. Even after it's all stained, I can still see that there's a little bit of glue in there. Again, not going to worry about that because ultimately it's going to be hidden. All right, so since my little jars didn't already have corks inside them, I had to really make a big sacrifice and finish off a bottle of wine so that I could have this piece of cork. It was tough. It was a tough job, you guys, but well worth it, and I hope you appreciate my sacrifice. So I'm just gonna cut off a little piece of that and make my own little cork tops for these jars. I'm gonna make sure that they fit, and right now I want them to be removable, but later I'll probably push them down inside so I can't remove them. All right, and then that's how my little quart bottles are gonna look. The next thing that I did was I just printed off some really small labels here. One says laundry soap and one says dryer sheets. And basically I'm just gonna glue those down to my jars with some tacky glue, and then that's what that looks like. For my laundry soap, what I'm going to use is this really fine white sand. It's so fine, in fact, this is the same type of sand that you would use if you were going to sugar coat some polymer clay miniature donuts. This is what you would use for that. For the dryer sheets, I thought it would be great to, guess what, use dryer sheets and just cut them down. And they smell so good, so I really, really loved this project for sure. All right, and then I just cut my dryer sheets down here to the right size, which was super tiny, and then folded them up and popped them in there, and then used one of Miniature's favorite tools, a toothpick, to just slide them inside the jar. Then I'll go ahead and put my cork in the top, and then my dryer sheet jar is complete. For the laundry detergent, I'm just going to put my jar down inside that bag and not fill it all the way up, but maybe like half full or 3/4 of the way. And then I'll go ahead and do the same thing. I will put my cork in the top, and then those will be completed. So I thought it'd be fun to have a little laundry sign up there on the shelf. And I saw this one online, and I just thought it was so dang cute. And it says, "Laundry? Who even does that shirt?" And I just really feel this statement so much. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a little piece of cardstock and glue this piece of paper right on top of that. And then I'm just going to use that same dark stain pen, and I'm just going to stain the outside so it has more of a thicker feel, almost like it's actually framed, but of course it isn't, it's just printed. Then I took this little bead right here, this little blue and white bead. I thought it looked a lot like a vase. And then I just have a little piece of garden material here, and I'm just gonna glue that on top so that it looks like I have a little plant sitting up there on this shelf. And I'm just gonna use my tacky glue for that. And then I think it's kind of time to put everything together. So again, I'm just using more tacky glue. I'll put my jars in place. I'll go ahead and glue my sign in place. I'll add my little faux plant to the shelf. And then I did find this little spoon right here, and I thought it would be cute to go ahead and put that on there also, so it looks like there's a little scoop up there for the laundry soap. And how easy was that? That was completed in, again, like 30 minutes or less to do this customization. Here it is again when we started with these little jars, and now here's the completed customized MayBerry Street makeover. It's my new laundry shelf. Maybe you have these items already in the house. They're pretty common and pretty popular, so hopefully I've inspired you to go and grab your little minis, sit down and enjoy your Sunday making over your miniatures and customizing them to how you want them to be. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you feel so compelled to do it, share this video on social media and with your friends. All of those things help the channel grow. So thank you so much again, you guys, for being here. Have a great week. And remember, in this crazy life, it's the little things that matter.